So friends, at long last, on April 25th, Donald Trump is being taken to trial by Jean Carroll. Let's talk about that, because justice matters. Hey all, Glenn Kirshner here. So friends, at long last, Donald Trump will finally find himself in a courtroom, in trial, for at least some of his transgressions. And no, I'm not talking about the 34 felony crimes for which a New York grand jury indicted him. That trial is set well off in the future. On April 25th, the defamation trial in the case of Jean Carroll versus Donald J. Trump will kick off in a federal courtroom in New York, because the presiding judge in that case, Judge Lewis Kaplan, just rejected Donald Trump's attempts to delay that trial. Here's the latest reporting, first from CNN. Headline: Next week's Trump assault and defamation trial in New York City won't be delayed, judge says. And that article begins, a federal judge on Monday denied for a second time former President Donald Trump's request to delay an assault and defamation trial set to begin next week in New York. Trump's attorneys asked for the delay, saying a cooling off period is necessary to obtain a fair and impartial jury, given the media attention around Trump's indictment on charges he falsified business records to cover up a hush money payment made to silence a past affair, which he denies. And here's how the AP reported it. A federal judge on Monday rejected Trump's lawyer's request for a 1-month delay, the judge saying that the former president cannot make public statements to promote pretrial publicity and then claim it's prejudicial. That very pretrial publicity is prejudicial to him and reason to delay a trial. Judge Lewis Kaplan in Manhattan said the civil trial on claims against Trump by a longtime columnist, Jean Carroll, will begin as scheduled on April 25th. Judge Kaplan rejected arguments by Trump's attorney, Joe Tacopina, that Trump's recent indictment in New York State Court on criminal falsification of business records charges had created such a wave of negative publicity that a 1-month cooling off period was needed. Here's what the judge said to that. There was, of course, a great deal of media coverage, some of it invited and indeed provoked by Mr. Trump. First, of the apparently impending indictment, then the indictment itself, and finally the arraignment. But the connection that Mr. Trump seeks to draw between that coverage and either the need for or the effectiveness of a cooling off period is unsupported by any evidence, the judge said. Judge Kaplan said a portion of recent media coverage of Trump's indictment was of his own doing, as Trump made public statements on his social media platform, in press conferences, and in interviews. Quote, it does not sit well for Mr. Trump to promote pretrial publicity and then claim that coverage that he promoted was prejudicial to him and should be taken into account as supporting a further delay, the judge said, adding that he was also concerned that the request was a delay tactic by Mr. Trump. Quote, there is no justification for an adjournment. This case is entirely unrelated to the state prosecution, Judge Kaplan said, alluding to charges brought against Trump on the grounds that he played a role in hush money payments to 2 women who claimed affairs with him years before the 2016 presidential election. he has denied the affairs. In a footnote, the judge cited other legal threats Trump faces to show that a month-long delay in the trial, stemming from Ms. Carroll's lawsuit, could make the climate to find a jury worse rather than better. In other words, that's Judge Kaplan, in substance, saying to defendant Trump, you know what, Donald? Things are only going to get much worse for you from here on out. But don't you love how Donald Trump can gin up all of this publicity, posting threats on his social media platform, giving interviews, yelling and screaming, often in all caps, of witch hunts and political persecution. And then he goes to Judge Kaplan and says, Judge, there's so much pretrial publicity that I need a cooling off period. We need to delay this trial. The case that has been brought against me by Jean Carroll. You can pretty much sum up Judge Kaplan's response to that in just 2 words. Pound sand. Friends, we will be watching this case as it kicks off on April 25th, and we will be supporting Ms. Carroll, and we will be rooting for Ms. Carroll in her defamation suit against Donald Trump, because justice matters. Isn't it nice when at least some of the justice chickens finally come home to roost? Friends, as always, please stay safe. Please stay tuned. And I look forward to talking with you all again soon.